Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Police Services Board meeting for 2023. Happy New Year to everybody. Nancy's taken attendance already and marked everybody as present. Before we begin our meeting today formally, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize PC Greg Perchella from Haldimand County and the tragic loss of his life in those circumstances. I know all of us were quite concerned at the time. It's so close to home here in Brant, right on almost the border of Brant and Haldimand. And I know I just want to say thanks to all of our Brant OPP team for all that you guys did during the incident, after the incident, and all the weeks after. Quite a lot of work to provide that backup, and I'm sure Inspector Quenville can let us know more about what that all entails, but it's quite an endeavor, and I'm sure there's still some of our officers and their families that are coming to grips with the loss and what the impact that they had. Many of them were the first responders to that call that night, and also hearing everything on the radio, I'm sure was not a pleasant experience either. So just wanted to take a moment to think about him and the loss of that life so young. And our 6 degrees of separation is so clear. I'll remember when we had Staff Sergeant Ben Gutenberg in the detachment. Ben was Greg's platoon sergeant the night of, so we all know Ben well, and we know how that would impact him as well. So sending thoughts out to everybody in the Haldimand detachment. It's going to be a long road to get back to some semblance of normal for them. So just want to acknowledge them right now. And then before we get into our agenda, wanted to also give our new Staff Sergeant, Jason McTaggart, an opportunity. I know we met him virtually quickly right there before Christmas, but we're now here in person, and I thought we'd give Jason an opportunity to maybe introduce himself so we can get to know him better now too. And we now have 2 permanent leadership positions filled within the detachment, which we're so thrilled about. So I'll turn it over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the board for the warm welcome, and to let everybody know that I'm excited to be here, and that this is probably going to be my last stop in my career. From here, I think I have about, I'd say at least 5 good years of me left in me here for the County of Brant, and I hope to do my very best to support our people and our communities as much as I can. Quick bio on me is I have 28 years with the OPP. I've traveled the province from Northern Ontario to Eastern Ontario, and experienced a lot of roles during my time with the organization. I was here in Brant County from 2001 to 2004, so I do have a very good understanding of the county and the great people that are here in it. So I'm very happy to be back, and I look forward to the collaborative efforts that we can do as a board and through the detachment to make sure that we provide our communities the best support we can. So I live near London, so I have a bit of a drive, but sometimes that drive allows me to decompress and think about day's events, and sometimes makes the odd call here and there that I don't have to make while I'm at home. So I've got 3 daughters, and 2 of them are still in school. My wife is a communicator with our PCC in London, so she has a very demanding job as well. So I think together we support one another as best we can, and like I said, I'm super excited to be here and to serve the county as best I can. Thank you.
Well, welcome on behalf of all of us, and we look forward to working with you and in the days ahead as well. That's great. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of our business today. The agenda's been given to you. There's an addendum to the agenda as well. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add? I would like to add, I don't know where it would go, but perhaps under communications, request for Special Olympics, polar plunge. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, we'll need a motion then for the amended agenda. Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Seconded by Member Brown, and all those in favor, and that's carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interests? Okay, that's none. We have no delegations today or presentations. Minutes from our previous meetings were included in the package from December 6th and December 16th. Anybody would like to move those minutes? Councillor Pierce, and seconded by Member Verhey. Any discussion? All right. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. There's the one item on the business arising from the minutes, which was the task that you had assigned me to follow up with Mr. Wayne Baker from the Grand Erie District School Board. So I had a good conversation, lengthy conversation with him last week regarding the School Resource Officer Program. 6.1 in your agenda is the summary memo that I'm providing you of that discussion. Quite a lot of information in there. Essentially, the decision to suspend has been made as a conciliatory position rather than outright cancellation. There's a lot of outside influences being made on the school board for these types of decisions, special interest groups, advocacy groups, whatnot. They are definitely very concerned about what their policies are going to be moving forward. Their timelines, it's kind of in the bottom of the first page. They're conducting apparently in January and February focus groups of students and stakeholders, and they're going to be doing surveys, whatnot. They're looking to have a draft report come to the board by March and April, with the hopes of having a final report tabled with the school board trustees for May and June. Then a decision hopefully comes out of that, and they then will be working on operationalizing those results, whatever that may be, with policies and procedures. There was an example of if the school resource officer program does remain in place, they're still going to be doing an internal review to establish criteria for what presentations they would like police to be doing and at what grade level. I know we've talked about that several times, about the various programs and the various ages and the types of things. So I guess they're going to review that again. We had a long conversation, him and I, about the value of having someone from law enforcement deliver that presentation, regardless of whether or not it's covered somewhere else. There's a value to having a police officer deliver certain safety messages and certain topics, and establishing those relationships with the children of all ages, whether it's primary or secondary students, that he understands, but he feels it's a public trust issue with certain communities that have had bad experiences perhaps in their home countries or here in other communities. We talked about how Brent is a rural community largely. Paris is quickly growing, of course. And so they're concerned about how do they make sure that if they do have police in the school, that they're going to be delivering the programs that are necessary. I think the value of the relationships is missing in some of this discussion, and the value of the connections so I respond with, we need to build public trust with our police officers and our law enforcement. We need to build respect and public trust with those people. And that's a great way to do it, in a lifelong, opportunity to build those things in a positive environment, talking about positive things, safety, personal safety. He agreed, but he also said that if there is topics that they have instructors for within the school board likely would use those instructors before they go to any outside provider. And all outside providers moving forward are going to have to be vetted, because apparently they're getting all kinds of requests for people to come into the school to give all kinds of different presentations on all kinds of different topics with different political agendas. So I did ask about what the opportunities are moving forward. Like, let's be part of the solution, not part of the problem. How do we figure out how do we still maintain our presence and our opportunities with youth in the county? We talked about the youth in the county today, and how do we want to model that for the future. Just because things are happening in Toronto or Hamilton or whatever doesn't mean we have to necessarily be like those big urban centers. We can do things that are different. We don't have to be the exact same, and we don't have to bend to the political pressures of some of the other groups that are speaking otherwise. He said it's completely in the hands of the consultant. They've left it completely with a third party, so that it is impartial and it's not political, and that way the consultant will come back with whatever recommendations they need to make. I asked when were we going to be consulted with, and he didn't know. He wasn't sure the dates, times, any of that kind of stuff. I felt that us, a police service board, on behalf of the citizens of Brant, should be part of that consultation process, and obviously, of course, our OPP detachment. He's assured me he would pass on both mine and Inspector Quenville's contact information to the consultants, which I've given him. So he's talking about how it has to be about student safety and about student wellness, and everything is still up in the air. Whether this happens by May or June, everybody has experience working with consultants, and not always does it work on the same timelines. So they're coming back to our initial discussion about why suspend it, why not keep it going while it's still under review. I guess based on the information that he provided, that was a tactic that they used to prevent it from being canceled outright with the pressures that they were receiving. It sounded like it was groups outside of the county maybe that are putting on pressure on all school boards in Ontario, not just like it wouldn't necessarily be people here in Brant that are having those concerns. So I did ask him if he'd like to come to a future board meeting. He said he would, but there wouldn't be anything more that he'd be able to speak to now that it's in the consultant's hands. So I don't know if there's any discussion or any conversation. Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Through you, just I guess a couple of quick comments. The part that I think we're all struggling with here is, we can appreciate the fact that they want to review this. That's fine. But I would like to understand where the decisions are being made, in the sense that not all school boards are doing this, which it doesn't, that just adds to the things about this whole scenario that doesn't make sense. If this is an initiative that they're looking to review, fine and dandy. But why is it that not all school boards are doing this? To me, that would suggest that each individual school board gets to make the decision on their own. I may be wrong with that. Now, the meeting you had with him, I'm just looking for and a good synopsis of how the meeting went down, Jim. Madam Chair. But I would just, what did your gut tell you after that meeting?
Like, what did I think that's going to happen? I think that
if I can put it bluntly, do you think the responses you received was just lip service, or do you think there's actually something to them?
I think I learned a lot more about the process of how they got to where they are today. I think that the decision, I felt from listening to the conversation that the decision was not made here in Brant. The decision was made by special interest groups in Toronto and large urban centers, and that then has gone out to pressure. He did mention that Thames Valley, right next door in Oxford, is reviewing, and Waterloo is reviewing, because I said, hey, what about West Region? Like, we're seeing all these posts about school resource officers still doing stuff in the schools. Like, how is that not possible? Like, and yeah. He's like, well, as a matter of fact, the people right beside you are reviewing. Hamilton's already canceled, he said. So how did I feel at the end of the conversation? I felt like there was, I'll be an optimist, a little bit of opportunity, hope that we can hopefully shape an opportunity for the school resource officers, but I feel that they're definitely going to change in some way, somehow. I don't think we're going to be able to continue to do the same things we've done prior to this review that they're doing. I think they're going to expect new changes, more oversight, more. I even gave the example about, Inspector Quenville told me about a school in the county that was looking for the OPP to come out as part of their Halloween safety parade, and we can't go. It's part of right now we're not allowed to be in schools. What a great opportunity to talk about safety build public trust and as being the people who have safety messages, and yet we can't be there. That's silly. That's not helping anybody.
Right, and just one final note on that, you talk about public trust and all that kind of stuff. You know, that to me is the best place to do it is when they're younger, through the young students, adolescents, and stuff like that. Some may say as adults we're kind of stubborn and have our mind made up. It's just sad. That's all. I'm going to leave it at that.
I will add just some color. I've talked to a couple of folks in where I live, and there's a very big lack of awareness of this. Even folks don't even know that this program has been suspended. They are assuming that this is continuing on like it normally has. It's not been well. It's not like a broadly distributed communication. I did feel that there was some tone about if they have instructors within the school board to deliver messages. We talked about human trafficking. Well, they have a policy about human trafficking, which is great, and they have a policy about reporting. Perfect. But they have instructors that can also teach that. And I said, maybe, but that message probably should come from someone in law enforcement with lived experience and with actual experience about how to handle certain situations. But I don't think we agreed on who best would be delivering those presentations.
Thank you.
I did my best to advocate for us, but I think at the end of the day, because it's in the consultant's hands, there was a deferral to anything, any kind of decision making until the consultants have done their review. I don't know if Inspector Quenville, you've been contacted yet by anybody at the detachment for anything?
Madam Chair, the consultant has been in contact with Sylvie Gagnon, and I've been included on those messaging to canvass the type of programming that we've been providing historically. That messaging included our neighboring detachments as well, because they're all part of that same service delivery. So I know that our Community Safety Services section of Aurelia was engaged in some of that discussion to ensure some consistency in messaging, but the consultant has been in contact with our detachment.
Well, that's a good first step. Anything else on this topic? I'm not sure if there's any other direction you want to provide on this, or if there's anything else you'd like done. Member Brown, you're thinking.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to belabor this. We went over it pretty in depth at the last meeting, but my concern again is the local decision making and who's responsible for that. Why they in fact have done it, that there should be reasons for it, not because somebody has said something could possibly happen. And the contradiction that one school board in our region is doing it, sorry, in our county is doing it, and the other one isn't. I mean, there is lack of consistency. But I really think there's two main points here. One, this is the best time to introduce people if they're saying it's because we have immigrants coming in and they have concerns about police in their jurisdictions. Well, what better place for them to get to see what our police are actually about in a non-confrontational situation to build long-term rapport. This is the best place, and they're taking that away from us. Number two, and I believe that this was stated by both Councillor Pierce and myself last time, is we don't know what dark hole they're taking us down by this decision. And the negative impacts that this could have long term. And I think we only need to look at what Toronto School Board, the Toronto District School Board is saying, that they're finding this is the worst time that they've ever had with violence and whatnot within their schools. And I'm not an expert obviously, but could it be a dotted line that it's related to the canceled school resource officer program and the police aren't in the schools? And I would hate to see us have that happen here. I hate to see it happen in Toronto, but I don't want to see it happen here either. So I do think that they need to be held accountable as to timelines and to their decision. And maybe the public needs to know more about this. Thank you.
Member Verhey.
Thank you. I don't have much to add other than the fact that it's refreshing that I think we're all so aligned on the issue. And just to reiterate, I think the great effort that you put into pushing for a discussion. I think that's fantastic, and I hope that other jurisdictions are doing this as well. But at least we're united on what we believe is the right thing to do, and just wanted to say thank you again for pushing that message and putting in your best effort, and yeah, hopefully that reaps some results for us. And I would second Member Brown's comments about without being facetious about it, is there a way that we could potentially communicate this to the community at large and try to muster more support around the perspective that the board has?
Thank you, Member Verhey. Inspector Quenville?
Madam Chair, I wonder, to Member Verhey's point, if this would be something we could include in the communication strategy, the messaging that the letter that the Police Service Board shared, whether that's something that we look to add to our Police Service Board website and include perhaps in the spring newsletter, if just for some general awareness, but just to ensure the community knows that the board and yourself have been engaged with the school board, and just a way to put the messaging out perhaps without all the details of the conversation, but just to raise awareness.
Good idea. I think Nancy's got that written down, so that's perfect. We'll follow up with the communications team about that initial letter. I'll also just make a note to follow up with Mr. Baker if I haven't heard anything in the next couple of weeks or so, just to make sure that we remain on the top of the agenda here, to make sure that we get consulted with. There's no doubt that our demographics in Brant County are changing, and, in the city of Brantford's changing. But, Inspector Quenville and I have also talked about the demographics of our police forces changing to align with that. Like we have a diverse group of officers that would start to mirror some of the communities that we're starting to see in the county and in the city of Brantford. So that can't be an issue, and that's an opportunity to embrace some of those interactions with new residents to the county. But we have a lot of long-standing residents in the county too that have come to know the programs and come to know what we expect with our civil obedience and respect for the law, and a whole bunch of other things that this program can lend into, let alone just personal safety messages. So I think we need to keep on this one. Personally, I think I've been reading the room here as well with your support, all of our aligned support here. I think we need to stay on top of this topic. It might even be worth some kind of op-ed letter to the editor with something like that, just to kind of raise awareness of the issue. But I think we need to keep advocating for our students and for our people in the county on this topic. So if there's nothing further, we'll move into, and thank you for your support, everybody. Item number 7 will be we'll turn over to Inspector Quenville for the detachment commander's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will go through some highlights and have, with it being end of year, I have a number of kind of year-end statistics to share with you. That's some very positive results, certainly in the County of Brant. But referring to page 15, we've had two staffing changes since my last report. Getting a lateral transfer, an officer from Norfolk County, so he brings with him his experience from general law enforcement duties there. And we are receiving an additional recruit that we expect in March or April. So year to date for 2022, there were 2 public complaints. Turning to the community safety and well-being team, our MCERT worker attended 12 calls, crisis calls, for November and December. There were a total of 20 COAST referrals for the mental health follow-up for November and December. In November, there was a human trafficking presentation that was conducted in the evening, and that was funded by the Victim Services Grant. There was a great turnout. Chair Haley attended a little more than 40 people, I understand. I just wanted to share, because they did a survey of the people that attended, just to get some feedback on what they thought of the presentation. So certainly some valuable information. One of which was, were you aware of the variety of services available in the County of Brant to assist victims and their families? 70% indicated no, they were not. So certainly it demonstrates some additional work that we need to do to communicate support that's available. They're overwhelming, like, did this presentation increase your awareness of HT? 100% yes. Did it give you a better understanding of what to watch for? 100% yes. If you have a youth in your household, did the presentation change how you would monitor their social media and internet use? 68% said yes. And also of note, if you are a youth, did anything make you rethink your social media responses and who you would connect with? And 100% of them said yes. So I think it was a valuable night in the community outreach, but also demonstrates more work that we need to do to continue to support the youth in the community. Our transitional support worker accepted a total of 6 calls for November and December. So again, officers are engaging her to support victims throughout the community. The data from our youth and school resource officer is limited, as you might expect. So she refers to incidents for November and December where youth were involved. From our community services media officer, 72 posts to both Facebook and Twitter during that period. And with the holiday season, there's a lot of community events that Constable Vitalis was engaged in throughout that period that are listed there on page 20. Focus patrols, again, reminding you that these have been identified through the data provided from our Safe Streets program. So we had 7 new focus patrols for the month of December that are listed there with a total contribution of just over 41 hours and a number of enforcement opportunities as well. So for our traffic management unit, they began their work, as you know, in July of 21 with Constable Giles and Constable Parker. So of note, there's a staffing change. Constable Giles has returned to platoon and Constable McCallum has joined our traffic management unit with Constable Parker. So for 2022, just under 2,400 Part 1 charges, 57 Part 3s, and 15 criminal charges. Great results comparatively. Constable Parker alone has laid just under 2,000 charges for 2022. So significant contribution. I'm going to get more data, but I dare say he may be the highest in the province. So, but for further updates on that. The Crime Stoppers data, Staff Sergeant Mittaggart and I are meeting with the Crime Stoppers representative at the end of this month to talk about how we can continue to engage this program in the county. A number of noteworthy events. You'll note skimming through them that there's a lot of ride-initiated enforcement and a number of charges laid for impaired driving throughout November and December. And that kind of takes me to, I wanted to share with you the stats from Festive Ride. So Festive Ride runs from the 17th of November to the 2nd of January. And you may have seen media on it. I know that we did receive some inquiries. Brant County OPP conducted 117 ride events during that time. And we laid 27 impaired related charges. And to give you some context, in all the detachments in West Region, that places us at the 4th highest for impaired related charges. So certainly a significant number of charges, and also something to consider in future communication, because certainly it's demonstrates that people aren't getting the message about making alternate plans to arrive home safely. I wanted to draw your attention to the top of page 23. the incident from November 16th. Just a demonstration of the great police work that's going on in Brant County. I can tell you that officer was in a stationary position, observing known people that were known to police, and made observation of the movement of a handgun, and took action following that. So that's as a result of proactive work in the community that the officers are out there doing. That certainly trying to be covert about his positioning. So I guess my point being is you don't always know when the officers are out there doing their work, but certainly great result in this case. And then the other item I wanted to draw your attention to at the bottom of that page from December 12th is relevant given the incident on December 27th with Constable Percella. This incident started as a report of a stolen vehicle out of London where the owner was tracking it through GPS. Officers, our Brant County officers, were able to position themselves to intercept this person. This person was out on bail with a very lengthy criminal history, most of which from the City of London, but he did not hesitate to drive head-on at our officers. Fortunately, one officer was able to avoid, but the second was not. And again, fortunately, he only received minor injuries, but to our commissioner's very strongly worded address and the need for bail reform, I just wanted to point out that Brant does not go untouched by these things. So, like I said, fortunately, the officers only received minor injuries, but also just to draw that to your attention too. And as you can imagine, with the storm that happened over Christmas, our officers were very busy dealing with a number of motor vehicle collisions and vehicles in the ditch. The effort and dedication shown by our officers during that time, when it's the holidays, and I'm sure they'd much rather be somewhere else, and dealing with the treacherous conditions when people chose to travel out and about when perhaps they should have stayed home. And one other note, our CSCU team has been very busy as well. And we know from some of the warrants that they've executed in the past, when I've sat here before you, when they do execute a warrant, there's a lot of follow-up that is required. And this incident from November 21st is no exception. So our bylaw requested assistance at an address. They observed a number of stolen vehicles. And when we executed a search warrant, on that property, 12 motor vehicles, 4 trailers, 4 firearms, the list goes on, ammunition. So lots of property, all of which was stolen, and an estimated value of $340,000. So a lot of vehicles seized and a lot of follow-up, as you can imagine too. Into the trends for November and December. Violent crime for this period is down just over 21% and remains down for the year. Property crime also showed a decrease of just under 16% for November and December and remained increased for year to date compared to 2021. Drug crime showed no change and remained below 2021 levels. In relation to our motor vehicle collisions, there were no roadway fatalities, fortunately, during this reporting period, and our personal injury collisions showed a decrease of just under 9% for the year. We're still seeing an increase in property damage collisions of 26%, and overall 20.6% for the year compared to 2021. Overall, our vehicle-related property crime continues to show an increase, and I think has been the subject of discussion since I've been here in June. So November was no exception, showed an increase of 50% in recovered stolen vehicles, but there's also an increase. There was also an increase in December as well of the recoveries. The theft for motor vehicles was up in November and down for December. An overall increase of stolen vehicles year to date compared to 2021 for November and December of 49%. Overall, the stats for vehicle-related property crime for 2022 was the highest it's been in 3 years in this reporting period. Our mental health calls showed a decrease in November and an increase in December. For 2022, mental health calls were slightly higher than 2020 and 2021. The 911 calls were up for both November and December. December certainly was a significant increase of over 200%, but remained below 2021 levels. Overall, 911 calls are down. Alarm calls were down for November and slightly up for December. Domestic disturbance calls increased significantly in November by 83% from last November and were down for December. And domestics were only slightly elevated from 2021 levels. I also wanted to share, because it's this time of year with year-end data, with the increased number of officers to Brant, and I know we've talked a lot about enforcement efforts, so they put out what are called officer activity reports. So we'll be expecting one that will wrap up to the end of December shortly, but I thought it was important still to share where we were at as of November 30th. So when we report on our big four charges, so that's the seatbelt, speeding, distracted driving, and impaired driving, Brant County has demonstrated a 47.8% increase over 2021 levels. And for total other violations, so other Highway Traffic Act, other criminal code, any other charges like drug-related charges, Compulsory Automobile Insurance Act, again, an increase in just over 24%. So the officers are certainly out there doing enforcement, and that might take them away from doing some of the other things that are reflected in our data. So I think it was important to share that. As a region, certainly we're not showing that significant a positive change. So for the region, for the big four, it's only an increase of 1.5%. So respectively, when we're at 47.8%, Brant is certainly laying more charges individually as a detachment than the region. And the total violations, the region is only showing an increase of 0.5%. So certainly your Brant officers are doing a lot of proactive work and engaging with the community. The other item of note is about traffic stops. So Brant showed a 31% increase in traffic stops. So whether that leads to charges or warnings, it's engagement with the community, which we know for some is a deterrent alone. So I think I wanted to share that data because I think when we look at some of the other information that I know we've spoke about at previous meetings, it causes, maybe concern's too strong a word, but causes inquiry. So I just wanted to share this just to reinforce that the officers are doing proactive work and they are laying charges. So, and one other item that I wanted to raise is 2022 ended our action plan that ran from 2020 to 2022. So this first quarter of the year, we'll begin the consultation phase for our next action plan. So certainly, I will be forwarding some additional messaging to all of you through the chair and in consultation with the chair to have some consultations about our next 3-year plan. But just wanted to take the opportunity to raise that with you at this time. And that's my report, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Disturbing festive ride after all these years of all the messaging and everything else to still 27 out of 100, 27 impaired charges in 117 ride events. That's concerning. And you're right. I guess more communication. Let's open the floor for any discussion or any comments or questions. Member Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few comments and a couple questions. The impaired charges, the 27 of them over the RIDE program, I'm not sure that you would have this information available, but is there any breakdown as to how many of them would be alcohol versus drug?
Through you, Madam Chair. I don't have that, but I can get that. This data is fairly fresh still, so I would also like to look at the demographics, again, to our point about engagement with the youth, to see what kind of breakdown we can look at from the analysis that would provide.
Second point, I was happy to see that you're going to be meeting with Crime Stoppers. It's nice to see that we got a positive hit or a successful conclusion to one of the tips that come in. $121,000 in counterfeit cigarettes is pretty significant. Third point, the ICON reports that we discussed last meeting that were kind of out there somewhere and shocking. It's nice to hear that it was an error in the reporting system and that you're looking into that further. So I saw that on the reports. Staffing levels. Do we have any vacancies?
Through you, Madam Chair, we do, and perhaps I was thinking we could talk about staffing in the in-camera at the end of the.
And that's it. Thank you.
Member Verhey?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the inspector, on page 16, the last comment under Community Mobilization Officer. Maybe I've missed in the past, but it's nice to see those statistics there regarding BGH wait times. Just made me think about the MOU that was being worked on probably into some years ago now, and I think a couple of meetings ago we brought it up. Do you have any update on that?
Yes, we are still continuing to, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, we are continuing to liaise. I had a conversation with Chief Davis from Brantford Police, because certainly that needs to be a collaboration with their service, as we're both impacted by that. So there hasn't been a change yet, but we are working towards consultation meetings. I understand from Chief Davis that the committee has not met in person since COVID times. It was all virtual, so they are due for a meeting, so it's still in progress.
Mayor Bailey?
Through you, Madam Chair, just for information, I know two of the people that were charged with impaired during the holidays, and both prominent citizens of the community. And I just, not to downplay what they did, but there is positive results from these charges when they get charged. I mean, both of them have children, both of them have teenage boys. They're totally embarrassed by their neighbors. They were embarrassed when it appeared in the paper. They've gone, both of them have gone for help. Not that they needed help, other than they feel so embarrassed and they're just trying to cope with everything. So, you know, if you can get through this and not hurt anyone and get home and just get charged, there's a lot of good that comes out of it, I think. Just because of the embarrassment and like these. And I'm talking about the flukes, the one-time deals where you stay too long at the local craft brewery and you only live 3 blocks away and you get caught. And you shouldn't have, you shouldn't be drinking and driving no matter how close you live to the brewery. But when that happens, it puts a whole chain of events. I mean, both of them even called me to apologize to me because they're both members of the community. And they were disappointed in themselves and wanted me to explain the situation to me so as much as it's harsh and it's horrible to open the paper and see names that you just wouldn't think would be there is a process behind all of that is a very good thing. I don't know if I said that right or not, but lots of people will not do that or be part of any of that because of what's happened to those two men. So I just felt that kind of comforting that teenage boys were embarrassed for their fathers, and the whole family dynamic got involved with this. And luckily no one got hurt on either of the cases. But I think there is a ripple effect of goodwill and goodness that comes out of these things if you can sort of just get charged and then get home. So I was very encouraged by it. Sorry for both my friends or people I knew, but there is something good that comes out of it, I think. Just a comment.
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I guess just through you, just a comment to the mayor's thing there. I guess the key is it's all about decisions, right? So, and I think that's what the whole message is all about. So, so a couple things here, and I'm gonna start off positive and end off positive. First of all, for the traffic management unit, that's awesome. I think it's one of those that I'll put it bluntly, we took a lot of flack as council for the decision to hire those two new officers. The stats are exactly what we were looking for in that situation of we need more presence out there. We need, as I've said for years and years, you start hitting people in the pocketbooks, they're going to learn. So to me, it's that's a great news story, and for Constable Parker, that's fantastic. I'm wondering the message, and maybe we could do it through our own communication staff or through you guys or something like that, to put that message out there that not only are these traffic management unit officers in play every day, but they're, to your point, they're one of the highest in the province of laying charges on these things. So it is working, and I think we knew as council that it would work, but it's nice to finally see and I don't mean it in a bad way, finally see, but it's nice to see the numbers to back up a decision that was made that we all felt was the right thing to do, and obviously it is. So that's fantastic on that. You kind of alluded to it a little bit with the impaireds. It'd be interesting to know not only demographics, but are they locals? That would be interesting to understand as well. The reform on the bail, I'm glad that it's actually being looked at again, because to your point earlier, there was a couple people that were stopped or taken back into custody that had a long trail of events, we'll call them. So whether there will be changes or not, who knows, but just to have it being looked at again, I think is a good thing, because it needs to be. Now with you had talked about the 31% increase in traffic stops. Is that, I just want to try to correlate the two if I can. Is that since July when the officers, the traffic management unit was put on? I'm just curious with that. Now, and I'm firing a bunch of questions at you here, with the action plan, is that an action plan of all of Ontario, Western Region, just our detachment? I'm curious as to, is that strictly for our detachment? Is that an overall? And then in discussion with the member for Hay, they're bringing up the wait times and such at the BGH. Obviously, with the mayor and I, we're on the paramedic services as well, and it's something that that all emergency services are going through there. And I'm curious, the meetings that you had discussed about reviewing that sort of situation. I think you are, but I just want to confirm. Are you kind of who is all in those meetings? Is it just police services, or is it paramedic services as well, and fire? I'm just curious who's all in those meetings, because all three we know are affected by serious wait times at the BGH. As far as the
Councillor Pierce, can we just do a timeout and maybe?
I was on a roll.
I know you're on a roll, but I'm going to forget the questions you asked at the beginning.
I got them all right here. That's okay.
Poor Inspector Quinville's got to try and remember them all to try and get them. Can we give her an opportunity to answer some of the first questions, since you've got them all written down, and then we'll come back to your second part, because you've got great conversation. It was all good stuff, but I just don't want anything to get lost.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So, as noted, I believe the first question was in relation to traffic stops. So that's not specific to our TMU. It's Brant County. And it is from January 1st to November 30th that data is reflected. So I will have some more year-end data, but as you can imagine, there's some delays in pulling all that information. But I thought that the information was very positive, because the organization saw a significant drop in traffic stops, as you can imagine, when COVID happened, and then even in the time after. Just the public not wanting us to engage, and then officers having some reluctance as well. So for Brant to see a 31% increase, I think that's a great reflection of the work that the officers are doing, that they're out there and having conversations with people. The second part, I believe, was about the action plan. So the action plan is, so there's a strategic plan that is the OPP corporate strategic plan, and every action plan is detachment specific and built to align and support the strategic plan. So there's three main headings, that being traffic, crime, and other. There will be some corporately driven goals within our detachment, but there's very much an opportunity for community focus and for us to include actions that support Brant and the needs of the community. And the community safety well-being plan and the 5 priorities there. I know there's consultation about that right now as well, but having a mind for the things that are in there and what the community says for the community safety and well-being plan. So yes, it's Brant specific.
Perfect.
And on the action plan, I don't know if you might not have been on the PSB, Councillor Pierce, the last round. I believe Inspector Anderson did some consultations with us in terms of some of the priorities that she included in the previous version. So I expect that we'd probably be involved in some of the information gathering and priority setting that Inspector Quenneville would be doing for the Brant action plan as well as other stakeholders, I'm sure.
I was just going to say, so yeah, I would also want to include messaging to council, of course, as well, because I'm sure they will have input from their constituents as well. So there'll be a number of layers for consultation to gather as much information as possible to make sure it's Brant specific. The other item was about meetings at the hospital. So be perfectly frank, I'm trying to get invited at this point. I've not been included, but there hasn't been a meeting yet. Okay. So in the time that I've been at Brant. So my understanding is hospital executive is part of that meeting, and the chief of Brantford Police has been part of that, but it's been quite some time since the OPP has been at one of those tables. So that's my first step, is to get into that meeting. So to your question about whether EMS is at that table, I don't know yet. I think that was the 3.
Part 1.
Yeah, so just a couple comments back to that, especially with the action plan and stuff like that. I think I do recall some of that with Inspector Anderson, but that's great that it's a multi-level thing, because my fear would be that if it's just an overall corporate, it might not fit to different, even to the West region or Eastern region, but it might not fit to the detachment. So I'm glad it's at that level and then just kind of works up in. That's perfect on that. And I think, Madam Chair, again, Inspector Quenneville spoke to other things kind of happening with the stats a little bit down. For December, for the foot patrol, it was down, but it's better. We're still, overall for 2022, we're still, 58% down. But again, there's other factors that Inspector Quenneville has spoken to. So I think as we proceed into 2023 and get back to, some normalcy, then I think that I'm encouraged that that's definitely trending in the right direction. So I thank you, and thanks for everything you do.
On the bail reform, I'm sure everybody saw the letter from the premiers regarding the request to the Prime Minister to look at opportunities for bail reform. And I think with bail reform also comes some investment in. Unfortunately, that comes with we need expanded jail facilities, and we need places to hold folks. And so I think part of the conversation needs to be about how we house people in that time period. And there's it's not as exciting to invest in maybe as healthcare and education, but some of these things need to happen in order for us to have safe communities. And I think with bail reform, we all have seen the impacts of that. Even in Brant with the rammed car, my goodness, that kind of stuff hasn't that doesn't need to come into our communities, but it's here. So how do we keep these dangerous people off the streets while they wait their due process and let the courts handle it as they may? But I'm also concerned about how the number of, I guess this would be interesting, is the number of charges that the proverbial we, not me, lay in terms of all these offenses and how many of them actually get cleared through the system. You know, it's discouraging to think about the number of pleas and the number of dismissals, the number of what have you that goes through the system after some really good work on the police part, and then keeping the community safe, and then folks are getting away with stuff that maybe isn't in line with what we think it should be. So I think that's all part of that whole bigger issue of bail reform, and I was happy to see Commissioner Karik take a strong stance on that, because enough is enough. I think we've all, it's too much. So good to see. If there's anything that we can provide commentary on, please let us know, or if there's anything that you think that we could add to on any of that. I think all of us would be pretty aligned in our position on that as well, and how that can help Brant.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anything else for the report that we want to review at this time? Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you everybody for the good conversations, and we'll hear more about the action plan coming up. And hopefully we, to Member Verhey's point, we've talked about this issue of the wait times at hospitals for quite some time, and hopefully there's some resolution. We'll hope for 2023 being an opportunity for some resolution to the issue. Also in our package, moving into the false alarms, I note in our minutes last meeting that we were looking to get a comparison of 2021 and 2022, but I'm not sure that, 2020, 2021, to be able to compare with the data that's being provided with 2022, but I don't think we have that in our package. So maybe that's I'm not sure who I'm looking at. Heather probably as an action item for next meeting. We now have 2022 in our package, which shows the full year. And we note in the inspector's report that false alarm calls were still up. So this is here for our information. And then next meeting, we can look at the comparisons to see how that's trending. Any discussion on that? Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see the year over year. But if we just look at 2022 here, so we got, total responses, 248, total number of warnings is 189. So that's 76% of the time people are just being warned on it. I'm just wondering in that report if we could just get something as to, is it all first timers? Is it possible to be warned twice? I'm just looking for a little refresher as to what constitutes a warning as opposed to a fine. Thank you.
Heather, did you want to add anything to that, or? Oh, got some feedback there.
Maybe it's not too bad. So I presented that report a few months ago. They are first time. Some of them are county facilities. If they have, we don't charge ourselves. And there was a couple of exclusions, but it is largely first time. Second one for any residents would be a bill. So I can go through. Last time I got a breakdown from our staff as to how many first time, how many second time, third, fourth, and fifth, and whatever that we had issued. So I'll try to get that detailed report again.
Member Brown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. When you look at it, it's really a very small number of people or entities that are causing this. If you look at the report, 36% of the alarms have been caused by 30 or less companies or people. So we're only talking a very small number of groups that are causing the majority of this problem. And maybe with some more analysis by Heather, we might be able to look at a better way of targeting them as well as the increased fines.
I know it's a small group of people, but it consumes time that doesn't need to be spent of our police doing things that they could be doing other things in the community. And so if there's some way that we can reduce the false alarms to a point that alleviates that, so that our officers can be doing other things in the community, I think that's the goal, right? Is to try and be proactive that way. did you have a follow-up, Member Brown?
Now that was my comment, that we're really focused on a very small number of people causing the majority of the problem. And I think we need to look at a better way of focusing on that small group. You know, if it's a corporation that decides that it's better to have the police respond as their property reference as opposed to them hiring somebody to it, we need to find a way of avoiding that. I'm not saying that's the case, but they're causing 36% of the problem, so.
My organization in Guelph is a tenant of a facility, and there's one strike and you're out with the City of Guelph Police. You get one time for your alarm, and if it doesn't get fixed, you get a big bill on the second, third, fourth, how many ever times. So there's no 5 times, there's once. One warning. We've never had a, thank goodness, but yeah, anyways. I think every jurisdiction handles it differently. Okay, so if there's no other discussion, we'll need a motion then to accept both the detachment commander's report and the false alarm report, please. Member Verhey and Member Brown. All those in favor? That's carried, thank you. So I think just under communications we have, also note Member Verhey has to leave at 10:15 today, so I think we're gonna get to your, we'll just jump ahead to your spot before we get there, but if not, we know that you have to leave. Quickly then, under communications, the added item of the Special Olympics polar plunge. I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with Jonathan Buchert. Did it. Buchert from the detachment. He is the provincial coordinator for the Special Olympics program for this part of Ontario. I think there's 2 in the whole province, and he's one of them. So he does half the province, and another officer does the other half. Many of you might have met him, young guy, very personable. Anyways, he's taken on this role with the Special Olympics, and he's been pretty engaged with a number of Special Olympic athletes here in the county. He did the torch run coordination last summer, and the Hot Wings event, and a number of things. There's a polar plunge happening on Saturday, February 4th in the county. It's going to involve both OPP and emergency services personnel. It's kind of a challenge to get out as many people as possible to do this dunk in the dunk tank. I think City of Brantford as well are participating. So I believe it's no longer at the detachment, it's at one of the fire stations on Airport Road. I believe it is. It's a county fire station that is happening at, just from the water disposal or whatever, the drainage, that's the right word, I can't talk today. At any rate, Jonathan had asked if PSB would be interested in helping to support this with a donation towards Special Olympics, given that it's happening in the county, and he's trying to attract other folks from outside the county to also participate. Each of the officers would be, getting sponsors to get dunked. I guess some of them go down to Port Dover to do this, but this will be right here in the county with a big tank of cold water. I don't have a dollar amount, and I'm not sure if Inspector Quenville, you have any. I had asked Jonathan, and really, quite frankly, he's grateful for whatever dollar amount we're able to consider. So I don't know that there's, and anything that we donate would go towards the funds raised for this program, back to the Special Olympics athletes in the program that they do. So I'll leave it to you. I brought it forward. I'm not sure if there's any discussion or what you'd like to do with that, but any conversation either way, information. Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So, do we have any idea of the amount?
In terms of the costs or the?
No, of a donation.
I'm going to ask Inspector Quenville to help me here because she might know more than I do about it.
Madam Chair, the ask would be for 500. If that was not reasonable, then certainly anything less than that would be agreeable as well.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And we have that in our, I believe we do, but do we have that 500 in our funds?
Heather is, I guess we're starting a fresh year, so I guess that
Our public relations would certainly have that.
Because I would move that we would support it with 500.
Okay, thank you. A seconder by Mayor Bailey. Any other discussion on the 500 donation to support this?
As long as it goes with thanks for what they're doing.
Goes
Not
with.
thanks from them, but thanks from us.
Oh, yes, of course.
For what, yes.
I think Jonathan will be thrilled to know this. And if any of us are available, I'll send out the. He sent a poster yesterday. I'll forward it out to the board. If any of you are available, I will not be dunking, but I will gladly bring the hot chocolate or or something along those lines. I don't. Are any of you two going to be getting dunked? Yeah, that might be worth going to see too. Anyways,
I've been dunked 5 times and I got an ear infection.
It's true. Lucky number 6.
all those in favor then of that motion for $500? Thank you, that's carried. Just in essence of time, I'm gonna, number 9 updates, I'm just gonna let Member Verhey skip ahead first on any Zone 4 updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nothing too heavy there, but we do have our first meeting of the year, but also our first in-person meeting on February 22 with the OACP, in conjunction with the OACP. So that'll be nice to get back to that setup. I've only attended 2, I think. One that was hosted by the county, and one that was in Halton prior to COVID. So I don't have a lot of experience. So I'm busy working through that. We have a draft agenda. It is being hosted by Halton again, so it's going to be at the Oakville Holiday Inn. And yeah, the final details will be forthcoming in the next week or so. That would come through to all of us as board as well. So.
Inspector Quenville?
Madam Chair, just for the board's awareness, we are hosting the May meeting. So plans are just underway right now to identify a venue and work with my colleagues in the syndicate to plan that event. So
For the police chiefs?
The PCSB meeting, yes.
Okay.
So it would be Zone 4 OACP and OAPSB.
Yeah.
Because they used to be all at the same time?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So potentially we may have a OAPSB Zone 4 meeting in May in the county.
Yeah, so those dates are already set. So the May meeting, all the dates for 2022 are set. So it will definitely be happening on that day, but it's nice to hear that it'll be here at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know the date in May by any chance?
Before.
Yes.
4?
4.
I think the last time it was in Brant was when remember Brown and I first started on the PSB, and we did I think most of us went to that meeting at that time as well. Yeah, so it'd be good if we can go to that in Brant, if it's gonna be here. Okay, is there anything else then, Member Verhey, before you have to, okay. We'll circle back then to council communications with Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I need to apologize to committee because I had a to-do to take back to council in regards to the camera, and I neglected to do that, so my apologies. I will get that on a council committee to discuss in the part of sharing the cost with Oxford and getting our own. So apologize to committee for that. A couple things I want to talk to. There's been, and I'm sure OPP is well aware of this, but it seems that there's been a very large upswing in vehicles being broken into and that sort of thing. It seems to be at the north end. It seems to be, and again, I'm just going by information and emails that I've received at the north end, and then up in the Edgar subdivision and Cobblestone area and stuff like that. I know there's a lot of discussion and emphasis around the lock it or lose it. And, you know, as we have unfortunately seen some of the stats that have been given to us with, you know, a little bit different, but with vehicle thefts and stuff like that, with people just leaving keys in it. You know, the message out there is the fact that, you know, don't leave valuables in sight, you know, and valuables in the car to be, you know, for the lack of better words. So I know we've kind of touched on it before in regards to potentially circling back and getting that message of lock it or lose it out there. I'm curious from an OPP standpoint, is there any other, like, I mean, the term lock it or lose it, I mean, that hits it, it nails it, but I'm just curious, is there any other discussions or ideas or anything like that to try and get the public to be more aware of their own personal properties and where they're left and how they're left and stuff like that. And then the other question I was given, which hopefully I responded correctly in the sense that absolutely send them in. Some of the things I've got are we've caught some of it on our cameras and stuff like that. And there's more and more people out there with cameras. And my response to them is absolutely, like that is, again, I'm a data guy. That's the data of what is happening, when it's happening. Potentially, depending on what kind of camera you have, it may pick up a face or a feature or something like that. So again, I don't know if it's just a trend around the whole Christmas time that it seemed to be more of this happening. So is it becoming more of a trend? Do you know within the OPP or elsewhere? And just if you could circle back on the potential of the whole lock it or lose it campaign again.
Through you, Madam Chair. So certainly, since I started here in June, the vehicle break-ins have been a pressure within the county. And as you said, the Christmas season certainly, I think, amplifies that, and people leaving more valuables in their vehicle. But we do still see a general apathy in people leaving their keys in vehicles. 46% is the stat I recall from the last time we spoke about it. I think the lock it or lose it portion, there's an understanding that can't happen in people's personal driveways. We would be trespassing, and I know that historically there's been significant concern in the community about people just coming up and checking their vehicles and looking into their vehicles when they're parked in their driveways. So that campaign is specific to when vehicles are parked in public parking type venues, or like malls or strip malls or things of that nature, so not to be intended in residential areas. So that campaign doesn't work for that specifically. And to your point about cameras, certainly we can't encourage people enough to provide that information, because they may just have one small piece of the puzzle that we're trying to put together, a timeline or a chronology, or just grab some additional piece of evidence to confirm an identity. So absolutely call in with that information, and there's some really great cameras out there that, as you know, that have some really great evidence for us. So I think your original point about how to message it out, I think is part of the communication strategy that the chair and I have spoken at length about, and just keeping it front of mind for people that this is ongoing. The ability to catch somebody in the act of doing that is certainly challenging, because we've talked about that how easy it is to just duck down while the cruiser drives by. And certainly we are looking at other investigative techniques, always looking at that to see how we can intercept and gather intelligence and build profiles of suspects. So what I don't bring to this meeting is to know that the analysts and our street crime team are always working on that and always looking to identify suspects and build bigger investigations. So what you might not see a marked vehicle intercept, they may be working on in the background, and I know they're working on in the background. So rest assured that the officers are continuing to investigate it. I'm not sure if that covers all your points, sir.
It does. Thank you very much for that. And just one follow-up, if I could, Madam Chair. And this isn't from council. This is something that triggered with what you were saying. So I have had the question asked me by a resident if they live close to an intersection, and they're saying cars are always blowing the stop sign, and they've got a few of them on camera. Are you able to, or is it possible, if you get footage which clearly shows a vehicle with a plate, are you able to, after the fact, potentially, discuss or charge going through stop signs, going through red lights and that type of thing after the fact if it's caught on camera?
So there's an opportunity to send our frontline support unit. In those cases, often we'll send a warning letter to the registered owner, right, because to lay a charge, we need to be able to identify the driver. Right. So depending on the camera footage, but certainly there's an opportunity to have an interaction with the registered owner of the vehicle.
Good to know. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Pierce, one of the things you talked about was community awareness about, lock it, lose it, whatever the program, messaging is. I've seen on social media other police service boards partner with their OPP detachment, and they essentially have a roving, billboard, those black boards with the neon colors, and they move it around the community for different community safety messages. And it could be a lock it or lose it thing, a reminder. It could be during the festive ride season. It could be something like that. And they've moved it around. Or I know one of them was on total charges to date on speeding, or showing the count, or I can't even remember now what the terminology was, but it's for like the stunt driving charges. So there's different communication tools we could potentially look at in terms of getting awareness out to the county, because we don't have direct, not everybody's on social. So how do we get direct reminders of people in their faces? In my little community of St. George, I cannot tell you the number of times I go to the grocery store, I go to the post office, I go to the restaurant, the number of people that leave their vehicles running while they go into these places, empty, like there's nobody in the car waiting for them. They're completely empty. The trucks are running, whatever, because they're just going to quickly go in and get their mail and come. And that's the perfect time to take somebody's vehicle, is when it's running and easily accessible. They're not locking it. They're not doing any of that kind of stuff. And I guess, yes, we love living in small communities and personal communities, but bad things happen everywhere, and people need to remember that it's 2023 and things are being taken all the time, unfortunately. And I don't know. I just feel like we're not taking enough proactive measures as on our own selves to be proactive. Whether that's not locking your car in the driveway, and I know the lock it and lose it thing with the community safety groups is limited, like in some communities, because there's not a lot of public parking places that they can go and do those types of activities. So maybe we need to think creatively about how we can get that message out, whether that's in our dispatch newsletter, whether that's in other forms. Maybe we need to think creatively about how we can get some of these public safety messages out to the community in a kind of roving manner, maybe. Kind of like how we have focus patrols, maybe look at how we can have, Go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Madam Chair. Just a quick response to that. And you're absolutely right. Like, it's unfortunate, but in too many of these cases, we're our own worst enemy with, like you're saying, leaving the vehicle running and running in. But anyway, there's a saying about you can't fix something, but we'll just leave that be. I know in the addendum with the community safety group, they're actually looking to. I noticed they're looking to set a new date for the lock it or lose it in January. So I think if we just keep. It's unfortunate that it keep happening, but I think if we just keep hammering that message, eventually, hopefully, it'll take note. But thank you. And if there's anything to take back to council, which I promise I will get that other one back.
Got the one thing on your list.
Epic fail, sorry.
Mayor Bailey?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, just to everyone, just to comment, two nights ago, I was watching the news, and Ian Hannamansing I don't know if you saw that. He did a special on locking cars or not locking cars, but it really doesn't matter whether you lock your car or whether you don't. He showed different camera images from different people that were getting their cars stolen, and they had these great big aerials. They looked like hula hoops, and the thief would hula hoop this thing in front of the front door and catch the sound waves from the key fob, and the car started. And then the other guy got in the car and he drove away. And so at the end of this whole thing, they showed maybe 6 or 8 different ways you can steal a car and how sophisticated it's getting. They have these little machines that you put under the bumper and the car opens. But it's crazy. But it's very expensive technology, but very sophisticated. But this little hula hoop thing came out of a guy's briefcase, and he just unfolded it. It was sort of looked like it was kind of elastic and sort of had a life of its own. But he was just playing around with it till it worked. He knew the key fob had to be in the house somewhere, so he was trying to catch it from a side window or from the front door. Maybe they left the keys on the table inside the house. So it doesn't. In these bigger cities, it doesn't really matter. I think Ian Hannamansing now does this show from Vancouver, doesn't he? I think so. And so this was all Vancouver stuff, but I mean, it doesn't matter where it is, whether it's Vancouver or Hamilton. I mean, these devices are available to these car thieves. And at the end of the day, it was an OPP that was giving him the advice and showing him the tapes. And so Ian said, like, how do I go home tonight and find my car in my driveway? He said, well, just look. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, just call us. But he said, there's no real way of protecting your car anywhere. Like if you order, because cars are being ordered because of the lack of stock, if you order a pretty hot looking Jaguar, put it in your driveway, there's a very good chance it won't be there in 2 days. They take pictures of the VIN numbers first, the first time they come by, showed them doing that. The next day, the Jag was gone. So, I mean, not to bring a downer on it, because it was very interesting. I mean, Ian Hanamansing was horrified that he doesn't know what to do with his car now. You know, that you have to almost put the bar on the steering wheel, back it up your driveway. So you can't just drive in your driveway. You need to put cars in front of your cars. And it was crazy what they were telling you had to do to save your own car in your own driveway. So it is getting bad, and it's getting sophisticated, and it's getting quick. The whole thing, the average from the time they walk into your driveway to the time they pull your car out is 13 seconds. That's a cookie. Yeah, so it's just the way the world's going right now. I mean, with people not having money and understanding this technology. I mean, my problem would be I wouldn't understand the technology, but once you have these pieces of equipment, I guess it's very simple. You must know all about all these things.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's certainly not limited to big cities. And I know that if that was at Vancouver, it's happening here. Like it is happening, I can assure you. And the plan to not, like you said, not keep your key fobs anywhere close to windows or doors, and there's opportunities to secure your key fobs in things like that. But you're right. Ultimately, if they want your vehicle, they're going to get your vehicle. But what we have seen that seems to have some deterrent is when people have left lights on. The feeling that they might just skip that place. We've seen that on, it's certainly nothing's 100%, but we've seen that on some of the video that we've got from some of the citizens of Brant, where I think, Madam Chair, you had that as well, or that lights on, they just skipped that place. You see them go by and go to the neighbors, but certainly nothing is 100%, but leaving keys certainly makes it that much easier, right? So it's just one more step, and you're right. They might break the window. We're seeing that too. It's just a general awareness and not leaving the valuables. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to balance the expectation of the community, with living in a safe community, with our own personal, what do we do for prevention and proactive measures, whether you leave your wallet in the car or you leave your computer or your keys for that matter, any of those things for highly motivated people, like Mayor Bailey said, they're going to find a way somehow. And maybe there's not enough consequences for those highly motivated people in the first place to be doing the things that they're doing. Maybe there's other related, and if we had a school resource officer program anyways, we could connect everything into all of these things. But I guess my concern was reading a lot of the social media interaction whenever something bad happens to somebody is just, a lot of people jump on the fact that, well, it's because there's no police presence, or it's because there's, this wouldn't have happened if we had had this, or no, it's happening, and you're giving them incentive to do it, whether or not there was a police car sitting there 24 hours a day or not. But that's not good use of resources either. So it's all about balance, and we only have so many resources available to us in terms of policing and law enforcement, and we need our citizens to do their part as well at the end of the day. Okay, moving on then to the chair's update, just to give you a couple of updates on some things. There's an interest in Brant East, which would be Onondaga, Mount Pleasant area, to start up a community safety committee down there. So Inspector Quenville will be, and PC Vitalis will be meeting with Councillor Garneau. Sorry, I only remembered her first name. I couldn't remember Councillor Garneau and also Joan Gatwer to talk about how they want to get that set up and what that looks like. And I think we've got some good examples of what they can do to do that. There's also a community safety well-being planning forum next Wednesday that both myself and Inspector Quenville will be attending. It's kind of a follow-up to the community and Staff Sergeant, or instead of, okay, you and I will be going, Staff Sergeant McTaggart will be going to the Community Safety Planning Forum. It's a follow-up to the initial plan, looking to see what's the next steps are, that kind of thing. So we'll be there. And then I think that's kind of what we have going on the agenda right now. And then we have started discussions on our next edition of the dispatch. So if there's anything that you feel should be included in the next version of the dispatch, please forward me an email so that we can get that on the list when Inspector Quenville and I sit down to talk about that, because that needs to get started sooner rather than later to get that ready for the spring. So it's busy, but that's good. And I guess, unless there's anything else, 2023 priorities we've talked a little bit about. We're going to have some more engagement. I think at a future meeting, I think we should plan to talk about communication initiatives for 2023 as a board, just to make sure we're all on the same page with how we want to proceed with some of those opportunities. And then that way we have kind of a strategic outlook on what that looks like for the next year. So we'll add that to a future agenda. And unless there's anything else in the update section, I think that's it for now. I was remiss on the addendum 8.1 was the Community Safety Group Paris meeting minutes that Edith Stone had forwarded to me for May, December, and September. And so we need to receive those for information as well. Mayor Bailey, thank you. And Member Brown, all those in favor of that? The St. George Community Safety Group is going to be forwarding their information. They just had a walkabout in the community this past Saturday. They can't do a lock it or lose it with the lack of public spaces necessarily, so they decided they would do a community walkabout in terms of looking at safety opportunities and learning more from the officers that attended. My understanding was it was a small group, but it was good discussions, and they're planning to do it again at the end of the month. And then they have their regular scheduled meetings coming up in February, and then onwards I can share with you as well. But Kim, the person that's leading that group, will forward their meeting minutes to us as well, just so that we have a sense of some of the things they're talking about that line up with some of the things that we talk about as well. And I'm sure if anybody wants to attend any of those meetings, they'd welcome any of us to come. Okay, we now have some in-camera items to discuss, so we'll need a motion to go in camera. Councillor Pierce, thank you. Seconded by Mayor Bailey, thank you. All those in favor? All right, and we'll give We're good? Thank you very much. We're back into open session now. We have next meeting date. I just wanted to highlight, I will not be present on Tuesday, February 21st. I will be away on vacation with my family for reading week with my kids. So 3 options in my mind. Maybe there's more. Carry on without me. Vice Chair Brown will chair the meeting. We find another date, second option, that would work. Or we postpone it and just move to March's meeting is another option. I don't know what the board wishes. Mayor Bailey?
Let Mr. Brown do it.
So it'll be important that all 4 of you are here for quorum then, right? So we'll let Member Verhey know that for that as well. So I'm sure Member Brown is going to do a great job, and I will try not to think of you while I'm in the sunny south.
Zoom in.
I can zoom in, yes. I can zoom in and watch.
Zoom in and watch.
So the next meeting is February 21st here in the council chambers at 9 a.m. And unless there's anything else, we'll have an adjournment then at